Why are the only new BMWs I would consider buying are these, or these? Well, the fact is I've owned numerous BMWs over the course of my life. 4 cylinders, 6 cylinders, V10s, V8s, you name it, I've owned just about everything. And if there's one thing that I've figured out, it's there's only certain types of models you can even consider buying if you don't want to be wrapped up in financial destruction. So today I want to share some of the newest, latest BMWs, the only ones I would consider buying and the only ones you should even consider shopping for. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
One BMW that I owned that I would never ever do it again, and I would swear I will never even come within 100 feet of one of those, is one of these BMWs right here. I've owned one of these. I had a 2007. That was the first year that BMW came out with their N54. That's right, it actually had a 3-liter straight 6, had 2 turbos. It was a twin turbo, not twin scroll, twin turbo engine. Of course, they changed it up a few years later because in 2010 was more or less the year that they wrapped it up. But that generation of the N54 and the straight 6 was one of the worst generation BMWs you could possibly dream of. And I owned it and I felt the wrath. And how do you know that? Well, it's a BMW 335, and generally from 07 to 010 is where you're gonna find a lot of the heartbreak. You can tell those because they generally have a dual exhaust system. Now, while they're fast, they're tunable. They got forged internals. They have an open deck design, and that's a problem. That's a problem for high boost levels, a problem for modification. There's even bigger issues than that, because if you're looking at some of the first generation turbo BMWs, they had something right down in this area. I actually had to change it on my car. The oil filter housing, well, there's a set of O-rings. There's a cooler side and then the side that molds to the engine. Well, those start to leak, and then you wind up with leaking coolant, leaking oil. That winds up on your engine. Sometimes it'll pull a pulley off and it can absolutely decimate the engine. But more typically, you're gonna find all kinds of mess under the hood, and it generally just starts to leak or mix fluids together, which is a bad scene. Other issues, wastegate rattle. So with age, with time, you start to get a rattling noise, and my car had that as well. So you get a rattling noise up front, and it starts to make noise both when you turn the vehicle off or even just when you're just driving it. It could start to rattle around. That is going to cost you significant money to get that rectified, because now you're having to access the turbos. You get water pump and thermostat issues. They can crack, they can leak, they've got plastic housings. And to get at them, you've basically got to disassemble the majority of the bottom end of the engine. It's a significant job, takes a lot of time. I had to change mine out, and you do them at the same time. So it's an expensive job. Even if you do it yourself, it's $1,500 for the parts. If you take it into the shop, it's going to cost you a significant amount of cash. On top of that, cooling lines, hoses, pipes, they all get brittle. They have the plastic ends. They're going to fail. It's a hot engine. The new turbos create all this new heat, and it's caused all kinds of problems for that car. I learned the hard way. You definitely want to stay away from the early turbo generations of the BMW, any of them. 3 Series, 5 Series, any of those that actually use that same engine, the N54 is going to cause you a lot of grief. Other problem areas in BMW's lineups that I start to realize are anything that has a V8 engine. Whether it's some of the older 4.8s where you have that coolant crossover pipe and you have to disassemble the whole top end of the engine to get access to it, or whether you're dealing with timing chain problems or catastrophic engine failures or high oil consumption. A lot of those older generation BMWs have had a lot of issues, specifically with any of the V8s, the 4.8 liter V8s, and the later generation of early generation of the 4.4 liter V8s that are twin turbocharged have had a significant amount of problem. The earlier generations, they weren't properly shielded, and you're going to find typically a lot of oil consumption, timing chain problems, battery draw, and just a general plethora of issues. Fuel injector issues, fuel pumps, they are not a reliable piece. And so any BMW with a V8 engine, and that even includes the 4-liter V8 that you found in the older E92 and E90 generation of the BMW M3, also is a V8 engine. Now that's a screaming demon, it's a fun car, but even that engine had rod bearing issues, throttle actuator failures. And so typically the rule of thumb goes, if it's a V8, you're going to pay the price for that performance. But after BMW's flop of this twin turbo straight 6, they realized they needed to change it up. They improved the turbocharging, they improved their overall reliability, and the N55 engine that followed this was an improved straight 6 turbocharged engine, single turbo, twin scroll, a much better, more practical and more reliable version for BMW. But they didn't quite get it quite right. It was still a pretty expensive vehicle to own, and there were still some reliability challenges. But BMW did not sit on their laurels, and I'm glad they didn't, because the latest generation of their Turbo 6s are some of the best engines, not just by BMW, but by the industry as a whole. And many people would consider them actually quite reliable. J.D. Powers rates a lot of these cars and SUVs that carry that engine as some of the most reliable vehicles. So do Consumer Reports also likes that particular drivetrain. Now, they don't really say it's that engine specifically. The 3 Series, the 4 Series, the X3s are all carrying the drivetrains that I'm speaking of. Now, this one came a little bit later, because if you're looking for the most reliable straight 6 engine, any BMW starting around 2017, 2018 is where you want to get into. That's where some of the best engines are, and those are some of the cars that I would personally buy. Here we have almost a later generation of a BMW X3, but what you'll notice is this one carries the M40i badge. Suggests it has the B58 engine, which is their much improved turbo inline 6-cylinder engine that they carry under the hood. They also mate that and strap it together with an 8-speed ZF automatic transmission. Makes it one of the most reliable combinations of drivetrains that BMW has had in years. Yes, you get all the great tech, the big sunroofs, you get performance, alloy wheels that are laser cut, beautiful, LEDs at the back, the M40i, which looks sporty, and these sort of steal the M badging, but it is a tuned up version of what we saw before. This is a much better drivetrain than we saw in the N55, and way better than the N54. This is where it all went better. They created a new engine called the B58 engine. That's right, the B58 engine was a new redesigned 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine that made about 250 horsepower that honestly was almost the same vehicle as the B58 that you found in that X3, minus 2 cylinders, because it had a whole plethora of technology. So the latest generation of the Turbo 4s and the Turbo 6s were some of the best engines. And these are an example of a vehicle, albeit this isn't directly the B48 as we know it. This is a front-wheel drive vehicle. This does not have the ZF 8-speed. This has an ACE automatic transmission, front-wheel drive only. It's a different type of vehicle. But even this X2 BMW here is one of the more reliable late model vehicles that you're finding in the brand. Now, this does have this great little decals right there. You know, the typical BMW handles are well made. You know, even the sunroofs are nicely put together, and everything just kind of works in these vehicles. A lot of people complain about the electrics in BMWs. That's probably one of their stronger points compared to a lot of the other competing manufacturers. We've seldom had electrical issues in any of our BMWs. It's been more cooling system issues, it's been more general reliability mechanically, but generally, these later generation BMW with the B48, the Turbo 4, and the B58 are the vehicles that are definitely worth owning. The B48, the B58 are the engines I would buy. And certainly, this is an example of one of those cars you need to have if you're looking to get into a BMW and you don't want it to leave a sour taste in your mouth. That B58 engine, you'll find it in everything from a 2 Series, 3, 4 Series, 5 Series, 6 Series, 7 Series, X5s, X3s, X6s, you name it, just about everything will carry that 6-cylinder turbo engine, the B58, in certain generations, in certain levels of trim. The B48, you'll find it in the smaller vehicles, 3 Series, 4 Series, 2 Series, you name it, the smaller SUVs as well, like the X3s. Those will be their standard drivetrains. Those are also very durable. So the B48, the B58s, anything from 2018 and newer, are likely going to have a better chance of longer life. And there's some really technical reasons why some of these engines, the B48s and the B58s, are so sought after, and why they're much more reliable than any of their predecessor engines like the N20s or even like the N55s. The transmission, firstly, is more or less the same, tuned slightly differently, so not a lot of troubles there. A lot of the BMWs typically haven't had a lot of transmission problems. However, it's what's under the hood that really matters, because this newer revised BMW engine, the B58 and B48, have some new tricks up their sleeve. And it's not just all the fancy skin that you see with these new grills and the beautiful new headlights on here. I mean, we could talk all days about styling updates, but look, we get beautiful calipers with M badging on here on these particular cars. Beautiful alloys. This one here, of course, has been rode hard, put away wet, I would say. Different style of handles. You get a bigger sunroof on this car, but as you circle around, they do give you a little wing on these cars anyhow. This one's an LED taillight, X-Drive, which is good. That's their all-wheel drive system, but it's the M340i. The M340i, which is the car that many enthusiasts are looking after these days. Many people are looking for these cars, and the value stays high, because it's smaller, sportier, younger buyers are buying them, but most importantly, it's reliable and one of the few models I would truly buy. Because on top of that, with the engine, some of the upgrades they've done, they no longer have the problem with the water pumping electric. It's now a mechanical water pump. Of course, you have a little telltale hole on that, so that's improved. Some of the cooling system has been improved. There's 2 separate cooling systems as part of these engines. Also on top of it, they have what they call an heat encapsulation. So it changes it, it sort of resists the big swings in temperature, because everybody knows lots of plastic under the hood is likely to start cracking and splitting with time. So with the heat encapsulation, it holds temps higher for much longer. If you're in really cold weather, you run the car and you park it, you can come back hours later and the engine is still warm. So heat encapsulation is a big one. They reinforced the bottom end of the engine as well, made that much more robust. As well, the fuel system, the injectors push out more volume, and as well the fuel pump's much more robust as well. Just about everything has been improved on this vehicle for the sake of reliability. The only thing they really haven't changed all that much was the oil filter housing, which is still a potential weak point. They say they've updated the system of gaskets and sealing, but it still has the odd issue. And early generations of the B58 now, word has it that there are the odd case of the oil pump using plastic impellers that could potentially pile up. Albeit that could start with a low oil pressure, you might hear a rod knock, or catastrophic engine failure. That said, that's extremely rare, and most of the later generation of the B58 have already been updated. So it's really a matter of checking out the VIN and understanding that that is a small possibility. Generally, the engine is tenfold more reliable than any of the outgoing models. Which BMWs in the new cars would I actually buy? Really anything with the new Turbo 4s and Turbo 6s. It's that simple. And with all of that said, be sure to check out right there, why are used BMWs so cheap? You're gonna wanna check that out. Hope to see each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day. See you then. Bye-bye.